Hey, 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 what's going on, guys? Welcome to a new episode of In Conversation. This is a series I started during the stay-at-home order and quarantine, really just connecting with dope individuals in the fashion, culture, creator space. So I'm coming to you live from my apartment in Harlem, still here at home, still on lockdown. I guess New York just went into phase 1, so slowly we'll be opening up. We'll see. But today my guest is Xavier Jernigan. If you are not familiar with him, I'm sure you're familiar with his work and some people that he has worked with. Super dope individual. Currently his role is head of cultural partnerships, and he's a host as well as in-house talent at Spotify. And as you can see, I have on my Black History is Now shirt, which actually was from one of the live activations that Spotify did during Black History Month here in New York regarding Black music. Super dope. But let me join him in now and we will start this conversation. Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Hey, X.
What up? How you doing?
How are you? Good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
Thank you.
I ain't seen you in a month of Sundays.
I know, a long time. Okay, I'm trying to pin this info so we can see. I always fail at this pinning thing. Like, I do it every week. It's a fail. Yep, not what I wanted to do. Okay, I'm gonna try one more time and then that's it. But how are
you? Going on? I see some folks I know. Toots, what up?
you?
What's going on, Daryl? What up, Adam? What's happening, y'all?
Hey, guys.
I see you, Drew Black.
Yes, a lot of our EBC fam. What's up, guys? So how are you today? How's everything going on your end?
Today I'm good. Today I felt like I got to breathe this morning, and normally I don't. Normally I gotta jump right in and get it going, you know what I mean? So today I was able to have a morning, but I saw that the way the meetings were stacking up, that I could put a big meeting there and just block out the morning, and I called it meeting free morning.
Oh, awesome. So like the rest of us, working from home?
Say again?
I said like the rest of us, you're working from home?
Yeah, we're on work from home for the rest of the year, but the thing is, I always work from home anyway, the majority of the time. So, and I travel, as you know, I traveled a lot for work, so I wouldn't be in the office a whole bunch. So for me, working from home is good because I can be really productive, really in my space. As social as I am, I do thrive off of having time for solitude, just to like think, you know what I mean, and just to re-up. So for me, it's all good. So yeah, working from home for the rest of the year, and I'm not mad at it.
Dope. Well, that's great. Well, thank you for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Of course.
So just to get started, can you tell people a little bit about your current role now at Spotify as head of cultural partnerships, host, and in-house talent?
Yeah. What up, Tiny? I see you.
Hey, Ty.
Tiny says she got to go in 15 minutes, so it's all good. Get your work done now. Get your work done.
Yes.
So talk about my current role?
Yes.
So my current role is a unique one. My official title is head of cultural partnerships and in-house talent for Spotify. So I'll tell you what that means on both sides. So on one side of the cultural partnerships work, that's making sure that Spotify is culturally relevant in our editorial and across our content. So that's playlisting. So when you see playlists around Black Music Month, Black History, when you see the Insecure playlist, so it's like TV, film, Broadway, sports, gaming, fashion, anywhere we show up in culture, that's my domain, and that's across the content. So that's on the playlisting side of things, but it's also on the podcasting side of things. Okay. And then in terms of being in-house talent, I'm literally in-house talent for Spotify. So that's actually the majority of my work now. So I host several podcasts for Spotify. I host a lot of our all hands and conferences. And so I actually get paid to fly around the world when we're traveling to host like all these different offsites and conferences. But a lot of it now is just here doing virtual hosting. So I have 11 hosting gigs for work right now that I do right here from home. So I have a home recording studio. So when you listen to the window, if you didn't listen to the window yet, you're slipping. Listen to the window. That's all recorded right from here. All the voiceover work I do and a bunch of stuff that's coming out too, all right here in my apartment in Brooklyn.
Dope, dope. So also I have on my Black History is Now shirt. I don't know if you can see
I
that.
see.
I had to rap. I had to rap.
Appreciate you.
So just kind of want to talk about your journey, you know, how you got to where you are, but, you know, key steps along the way. I think you have a really interesting story. So would love to kind of like how you figured out, you know, this was your passion. This was the way you wanted to go.
Let's see how far back.
I mean, I think as far as you have to go, you know, I really interesting. I always find it interesting just hearing people's journeys and when they figure out what they want to do. Like for me, it was high school, but everyone's not that. So kind of like when you figured out what you wanted to do and then kind of some milestones along the way.
All right.
X is
So
the
mine.
CEO. He is.
What up, DJ CEO? That's the homie right there. I ain't seen him in a month of Sundays. So for me, I'm gonna take you back. It won't be year by year, but I gotta take you back to age 3 because this is the truth. From the age of 3, I knew that I was supposed to move to New York. I'm from Daytona Beach, Florida, born and raised. Hashtag Florida man. And so that's spring break, that's NASCAR, that's all of that. It's car culture, it's bass, it's skateboard and surfer culture. That's what I grew up with. But at the age of 3, God very clearly told me that I was supposed to live in New York, that I was going to come to New York and make it. I didn't even know what all that meant, but anytime 3, that was one of the first, I can tell you the first 2 memories that I was aware of. And it's like, God speaks to people in a lot of different ways, you know, through the word, through different people, through nature, through meditation, through prayer, through song. And one of the main ways that God speaks to me is he'll just plant a clear thought in my head that I know come from me. But it's just an understanding and a very clear thought. And I know that's what it is. Just that's what it is.
Yeah.
And God told me 2 things that I'm in a place in my life when I'm just very, very transparent. So I'm just telling y'all how it is. So 2 things he told me. One, that I'm supposed to live in New York. So I know I was called to be here. Like always, whenever I would see movies, so anything from, you know, like 80s baby, so Wall Street, movies like Big Business, The Secret of My Success, Muppets Take Manhattan, any movie about coming to New York and making it, like I always identify with, like I was always big on that.
Yeah.
So it was that. And then the second thought that God just very clearly planted in my head, and I'm gonna try to make it make sense. So let me know if this doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But God told me, like, you're different and you're cool. So you like different stuff, but the stuff you like is cool because you're cool and I made you cool. And that's all to it. And I just ran with that understanding, no exaggeration, y'all, from the age of 3. And I just rocked with that. And I just have always been myself. Not saying I haven't had moments of uncertainty and insecurities and, you know, all those things that we go through as human beings and having real feelings. But I've always known that what I like was what I like, and what I like is cool because I'm cool. And God said I'm cool.
Yep. Cheers. Yes.
What's up, Scott? I see you, bro.
That's awesome.
Me and Scott Kepnack right there used to share an office back in at Universal Motown Republic. That's the homie, right? That's fam right there.
Right. So you have a background in the music industry, other aspect labels versus being at Spotify and all that.
And then pre-music industry. So we'll go back to continue with the story. So let's jump all the way up to I went to FAMU.
Okay.
Shout out. Very proud FAMU rattler.
Very, I don't know. He is a very, very proud rattler.
I almost bought a fam gear today, but you already know what it is. So I went to FAM. I chose FAM. I only applied to 2 schools. I knew I was going to an HBCU.
Mm-hmm.
I only applied. My brother went to Howard, as you know. So I only applied to Howard, and I applied to FAM. I grew up in, the other thing with Daytona Beach too, y'all, is it's an HBCU town. So Bethune-Cookman University, back then Bethune-Cookman College, where my mom went, and she's a proud graduate.
Oh.
So I grew up around that. So we grew up knowing we were going to go to college. We knew like high school, right? You're supposed to graduate high school and you're supposed to go to college. So I grew up on school days. I grew up on a different world. And then I grew up in a black college town. So, I knew so I applied to Howard, I applied to FAM, and I chose FAM over Howard because FAMU invented the 5-year MBA. And I knew I was going to go on to get a master's in business. So I wanted to learn business. I knew I wanted to do entertainment. I knew that through like my teens. Like I knew I was marketing too from a business from a business function perspective. And straight up, like, I mean, you'll see how it all ties together, but movies like really inspire me too. Like, so Boomerang gets a lot of credit because Boomerang showed black marketing executives, and it was cool. So that educated a lot of us on like careers like that. So I knew I wanted to work with entertainment. I knew I had a passion for movies, TV, and film that went deeper than the average person, because me and my brother would just like read all the credits, watch all the credits, like on every, and we would talk about stuff like, this is as kids. This is at like 8, 9, 10 years old. We'd be like, oh, okay, that person wrote this movie and that actor is always in this guy's movies and this person's movies. So we always talked about that stuff as kids. Then we would also talk about commercials, and I would wonder like, man, like, how did that person know like this black kid in Daytona Beach would think that's funny? So that also stoked like my imagination around marketing and what marketing would be. So it was pre-Boomerang, but seeing it on screen in Boomerang and like seeing how cool they were, like all that tied it together. So I knew I wanted to go into entertainment for a career, but I also knew I wanted to do marketing as the function underneath that. And I know I get a master's degree, like, because the truth is, and and it's more open conversation. This was always like family conversation, but like us having to be like twice as good and working twice as hard. So I knew just how it is in my household that I was going on to get a master's. So a 5-year MBA program was it for me, where I could really learn like baseline marketing. So I had a plan going into high school. Everybody in high school knew. I see my cousin join. What up, cuz? What up, cuzzo? Nick Jernigan in the house, straight from Alabama. So I knew I needed to learn textbook marketing. So I chose FAM to learn that. And I knew then I could learn that, get my foot in the door, and then apply it to the music industry, as opposed to trying to go straight into entertainment. And I chose music because music exists in TV and film. Like, you don't have TV or film without music. Like, music is a character in TV and film. The first sound in any movie was actually a musical performance, in Al Jolson's The Jazz Singer. So for me, because you can't have those without it, that's what chose music over the others. So did a 5-year MBA program at FAM. We got to do 3 internships. I interned at different places to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like. And then I ended up going to Procter & Gamble straight out of FAM. So lived in Cincinnati. I was doing marketing research. I had offers from Coke. I had offers from Ford and Procter & Gamble. I chose Procter & Gamble because they basically invented brand marketing as we know it. Like, so the opportunity to go there like straight out of FAM and really learn that, I knew that's something I could take with me other places and just have this perspective on how I view things that's rooted in this very textbook, classical marketing way of thinking that I still apply to this day.
Yeah.
So that was the start there, from like a very specific textbook kind of way of thinking of things. And this is where the story gets like really interesting. So I'm in Cincinnati, I lived in downtown Cincinnati. Thankfully, I could travel a lot with that job because Cincinnati's,
Not what you.
It ain't New York.
And how long?
It's not New York. So I was in Cincinnati, but I got to travel to New York. I got to travel to this is at 24 years old, 23 years old. Okay. Like, I got to travel to Puerto Rico 6 times in a year because we had an office in San Juan. I got to come to New York all the time, Atlanta, Chicago, LA,
Yeah.
all the. So I was always traveling. Like, and this is at 23 years old. Huh?
Cincinnati?
I was there a year and a half total.
Okay.
So this is the thing. What up, Tim? So this is the thing. I knew it was time for me to make my move out of Procter & Gamble. But let me tell y'all, this is how my life goes. If you want to know anything about me, this is how my life goes. The day, and I promise you, this is no exaggeration. You can look it up.
Okay.
The day I started at Procter & Gamble, the biggest stock drop price in the history of the company. The day I started. Dropped by 50%. Now, Procter & Gamble is 75% of what you have in your cabinet right now. Everybody who's watching this and who will watch it is 75% of what's in your cabinet. So that's one of those stocks where you're like, yeah, this stock has never changed.
Solid.
Right. So people's retirement got cut by 50% that day. People who were going to retire that year or set to retire in a couple of years. So it reminded me on my first day, which I know was no coincidence, that none of this is guaranteed. So you might as well do what you love. Mm-hmm. So that was a good reminder that so happened to me on my first day. But let me tell you how it connects though. So a year later, and this is how I roll. A lot of y'all know this, and some of y'all don't. If you just met me in the last 5 years, you don't know this. But I have long locks for 13 years, and I cut them 5 years ago. I started locking at Procter & Gamble because that's how I roll. But I waited till I got that first review. That first review be good.
Yeah, right.
Then we're gonna twist up so you can't front on me.
Right.
So that was my whole thing. So I get that first review. The review's great. Mm-hmm. But Procter & Gamble, the stock price dropped 50%. They got to make some decisions. And what up, TT? I see you. So they got to make some decisions right there, right? Decisions about layoffs and things.
Right.
And they didn't want to just say we're having layoffs. They started doing voluntary packages. So this is the deal. With voluntary packages, not enough people were taking them. So people who had just had reviews a month before, they started calling those people in like me. Ooh. And the next thing you know, you get another review a month later.
Right.
And now you're getting a bad review. Straight setup.
Right.
So this is the thing. I was like, okay, I'm gonna take one of these packages, or I'm gonna consider taking one of these packages, because you could ask HR to let you see what the numbers would be. And I'll tell y'all what it was. If you worked there for at least a year, they would give you 3 months pay and a lump sum and extend your benefits. And the economy was good back then. I'm dating myself, so it's all good. But the economy was really good back then. So back then you could just call up a headhunter if you had an MBA in a company like P&G under your belt. I had a Coke internship under my belt. You just call up a headhunter, and then they'll just call you back, and they'll start scheduling interviews, and they'll fly you out for the interviews and all of that stuff. So I started looking at the numbers. So 3 months pay, lump sum, extend your benefits for 3 months. Then if you go back to school within 2 years, they'll just write you a check for $5,000 and career placement services. So I'm like, okay, let me look at that.
Right.
And I was figuring it was time to get to New York and figuring out how that would go. So this was just one day I'm sitting on the side of my bed in my apartment in Cincinnati, and I just was trying to figure out, okay, how I make this move? How do I get into music? Because I'm in a very corporate environment now. And God, once again, you see the theme, spoke to me very clearly. Again, just planting thoughts in my mind that I could not have put there myself. Mm-hmm. And God said, get a job in the area, work for a year. NYU has a program you're gonna like.
That was that thought?
Yeah, just like that. And I didn't even know anybody who went to NYU, so I didn't know what God was talking about. So I'm like, all right, okay. So I get online, and I just Google. This is all the true story. I Google NYU music business, but God, exactly. NYU music business. And so let me say this too. I didn't want to go back to school. I had an MBA. So
right.
had a master's already. I wasn't looking to go back to school.
First
Right?
place. That's the whole point.
Exactly. So I Googled NYU music business, and this program pops up, music business graduate program. And the blurb they had written about the program, if I could have wrote, if I had to go back to school, and if I had to write what the program would be, that was it.
That's crazy.
So that was the plan. I called up the headhunters. I only took interviews in the city and in vicinity, so Jersey as well.
Yep.
And I took a job with Arm& Hammer. They moved me out to New York. The plan was apply to NYU. They only accept 25 people in this program from around the world every year. And you get accepted and then do that, move into the city. And then that's how it transitioned into the music industry, starting as an intern. Boom. I see you, Rashida. And then that's how it happened, exactly like that. So my next job was Arm& Hammer, and I was product manager for Arm & Hammer toothpaste, the whole dental care line. So I marketed that for a year. Wasn't really into it, but it was in Princeton. I had Arm & Hammer move me to Jersey City, right on the water, and I reverse commuted to Princeton every single day, an hour and 15 minutes on average.
Oh, wow.
Each way. And then that's how I rocked, like every day, with the whole plan of like, I got to get into NYU.
Right.
And then I applied and I got in, and that's how it went. So I started at NYU full time. That's when I moved into Brooklyn. I was just on the other side of the water anyway. And my girlfriend at the time from fam lived in Brooklyn. So I was in Brooklyn anyway, it's one of those things. And I moved into Brooklyn full time student at NYU, and started interning. That was my transition into entertainment, and like on this crazy journey that I'm still on all these years later, man. I'm telling you, it's crazy. God is
I agree.
amazing.
I hear bits and pieces of your story before, but like every time I'm just in awe. And I think it's so dope just how clearly you can recognize God speaking to you. Because I think a lot of us sometimes have the issue, like, is he talking to me? I don't know. Maybe. Did I miss it? Did I hear the right thing? But it's so interesting. It's so clear to you. And even from 3, like immediately you knew. Like, that's awesome.
You know what I think it is? I think it's having some level of self-awareness and also understanding when it's not you. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, I know when it's not me. I know I couldn't have thought of that. I know I couldn't have like hatched a plan to come from Daytona Beach, Florida, which is exactly 1,000 miles south of where I'm sitting right now, right? To get to Cincinnati and then get to Brooklyn and to be in NYU, getting a second master's. What? Like, NYU's the most expensive school in this country. Like, it may not, like, it's always in the top 3. When I was there, it was number 1, just for the record.
Yeah.
The most expensive school in this country. Like, and now I'm accepted in this program, going there. What? So it's one of those things I see right here. It's bigger, right? It's bigger than me. And that's time purpose and God having a plan for you. And you just got to like pay attention to the signs and the clues, man, and the people God puts in your path, and just how he's, directing you and leading you. And that's what I just try to do. And it's just, if you don't fight it, it's more natural than you think. And I think what it is like our physical self fights against it all the time. And I just try not to fight against it. I just try to keep rolling with it. So when I see the signs and pay attention and see consistencies, I just roll with it. That's how I try to do it. And then it just ends up working, man.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys for joining. For you guys just tuning in, Xavier's super dope. If you guys have any questions, type them in. We'll kind of shout you guys out along. Okay, so I want to get back to your story. It's so interesting. So you're at NYU, you've gotten accepted. So you left Arm & Hammer to go to school full time.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So I'm literally not making money. Let me tell you about how God tests you too, because this is the thing you got to know.
Yes.
Once I had the acceptance to NYU. At Arm& Hammer, they had already let me know that to get ready, I'm about to be promoted. So in that conversation, I told them, because this was like 6 weeks ahead, I'm like, let me just let y'all know, like, because they were good to me, like, by and large. Like, let me let them know I'm going back to school, give them as much notice as I can, right? I was completely out of debt. Owned my car. This is at 25 years old. Owned my car, completely out of debt, made good money. And I promise you, this never, ever happens. Y'all don't know. I ain't got to promise y'all. Y'all know this. The place where I lived, which was a new building, downtown Jersey City on the waterfront, they were going to lower my rent if I re-signed my lease. They were going to lower my rent $700 a month.
What?
So, of course, I'm like, do I rock out with this for another year? Because you can defer your enrollment for a year.
Oh.
Acceptance, you can defer that for a year
Yep.
and start the following year. And I was like, really thinking, because I'm out of debt, and I'm like, I could really stack up.
Right, if you get that.
But I remember thinking, like, I would look at the odometer on my car every day when I had that hour and 15-minute commute one way. And I was on average. Sometimes it was 2 hours, depending if it was an accident. That's just one way. So in my car, on average, 2.5 hours every day on the low end, every single day. And I would watch that odometer turn with every mile, and I would just feel like time was going off of my life.
Yeah.
And so I was at a crossroads there. Try to defer it and keep on with this and make it about money, or do what God like told me to do.
Right.
And go after the plan like he laid out for me. And that's what I did. I'm like, nah, I got to do this. So at NYU full time, broke college student, for real broke college student. Most expensive school in this country. I think that's in the world. And trying to figure out like how I'm gonna make this transition.
Right.
And the first semester, they don't want you to intern. They just want you to get acclimated to being in school full time, being in this program. And I just happened to be checking my email one day. This is in that first semester. And another Black student, I'm telling you, I just happened to be checking my email like this, my NYU email at this exact time. And Black student sent out an email, and it said internship opportunity at major label. And then, so, because I saw it pop up, I replied, it was like, hit me up if you're interested. And I was like, I'm interested. And he didn't say what it was. He didn't say what it was. And he was like, it's Bad Boy. And I was like, yeah, I'm interested in interning there. So he set me up with an interview. And then he just, because his friend worked there, he knew they were looking for interns. And he set me up to interview through that guy. So I ended up getting a marketing internship with the head of marketing, Tracy Waples. And I started January that next semester. And that started my journey. That was my first music industry record label experience. So just to take y'all back a little bit, this is the making the band years of Bad Boy. Yeah. This is the, Puff runs the city, that marathon and all of that. This was that time where Puff was like the man, all over MTV. So
this is your first internship, your first job in the music industry. That is
of any kind. Other than like making music in college and the stuff we did on our own, but like official, you in the game. Like I bought records that Bad Boy put out, like, and now I work there, right? So I'm working with the head of marketing. So I did. Let me tell you something. I did the old school record label internship. Yeah, especially if you're at Bad Boy too, because that's how Puff came up. So I'm making copies. I'm answering phones, because you're really not the intern for the head of marketing. You're really the assistant's assistant.
Okay.
So you're answering phones, you copies. I'm putting money in parking meters for people. I'm physically going and paying people's Verizon phone bills, getting loans. And I'm not even a titles person still to this day.
Yeah.
But man, listen, like, it went through my mind a few times, like, hey, man, like, I got an MBA. I worked at P&G and Arm& Hammer, and I'm working on my second master's. And I'm straight up like getting people's lunch. But what I did though, anytime I had to make a copy, if it was like a video treatment, I'll take that copy and make one for me too. I would always make a copy for myself, so I'm reading what they're reading.
Yeah.
And then they'll ask questions about it.
Oh.
Then conversations will happen, and then they start asking my opinions. And then they start, okay, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So that intern there all through the spring semester when there aren't many interns interning. You know, in the summer, that's when most of the interns come.
Yeah.
Now, because I had the experience, the working experience that I had, and of course I'm a few years older than most of the interns, they actually put me in charge of the summer interns that came on. So then it's like, because one, I could show them the ropes about how things work at Bad Boy from an intern perspective. And if I needed help on some other things, I could like delegate and assign and stuff like that. But that summer, I rode around with the Making the Band cat. So the band, like, so Dyline, and Ness, and Chopper, and those cats, Fred, what's his name? Fred, like all of those dudes. It was Sarah Stokes. It was my job to drive them around to whatever they had to go to. Yep. So they put out this like big Suburban that I would take home, like drive home, and I would have to pick them up and knock on their door and make sure they were like awake to take them wherever they had to go. Or like, I had to take like Sarah Stokes to a King magazine. Y'all remember King magazine?
Yes.
Fellas do. King magazine, the back shot, the back. So I had to take Sarah Stokes to her King magazine photo shoot.
That's so funny.
I don't know if y'all remember the show, but she was in a weird marriage situation, and her husband was just there, like hawking the whole thing.
Oh my God!
That's the kind of stuff I had to do. It was actually really annoying, and they asked me to be in the show for that fall doing that role, and I said no, because y'all ain't about to make an ass out of me running after these people, being mad all the time, like being that person. So I actually said no. And then another intern, they asked him to do it, and he said yes, and he was in the show. Jason, my boy Jason Wiley, who I'm actually doing a panel for next week. But the really cool thing is, things I learned from FAMU SBI School of Business and Industry is like just the art of asking questions and how to structure questions and having the confidence to ask. So whenever there was a company town hall and it was all the execs and the whole company could come in and Puff would address the company and open the floor, people would be afraid to say anything.
Yeah.
My hand would go up every single time.
Wow.
And I would ask him, you know, a well-researched question, and he would answer it, and he always be like, good question. So he got an awareness of me.
Right.
And respect for me, just like around the office in terms of like how I carried myself and how I addressed him, how I addressed, you know, the people I worked for. So he started asking like Tracy, the head of marketing, like, okay, who was that? Oh, that's X.
Yep.
So I understood who I was. So long story short, I got voted as an intern employee of the month, which had never happened like in the history of the company. Into that summer, I ended up interning a few different places because I didn't want to be pigeonholed. Like, it's a lot of conversation right now due to all the stuff that's going on with the protests and us just revisiting and rethinking different terminology and things we like call ourselves, but like urban one that's under fire right now, and companies are reevaluating. One, I've always hated that term. I think it's
urban.
Terrible. Yeah, urban for, you know, for Black. Like I've always hated it, right? So I wanted to intern. That being said, I wanted to intern at different companies so they wouldn't pigeonhole this young Black dude with locks into all he can do is hip hop and R&B.
Yeah.
So you're right, urban. So I went and I got different internships. So I left Bad Boy, even though they were like, hey, the door is open if you want to keep interning here. And I interned at Warner Music Group that fall. And then I got another internship the following spring at Columbia, and this was in their A&R war room. And A&R is the team that goes out, finds the talent to sign to the label.
Okay.
So A&R war room was a group of us interns that sat in this little room, and we just had to like research different artists, really like independent artists that were making some noise. to pitch to the A&R staff at Columbia to get them to sign them. And me and another intern pitched John Legend, and John Legend got signed to Columbia through the A&R War Room through me and the intern. And at the same time, and that was my first proper check in the music industry, because we got a little sign and check. But you know how they do, though, because they got all the credit. Like,
right, of course.
You know. But it's a nice story to tell. It's a nice story to tell. And there was a couple extra dollars in my pocket. So at the same time, Bad Boy called me and they asked me to work there part-time. So I was working there part-time. This is my last semester at NYU. So I'm working there part-time. I'm interning at Columbia. We getting John Legend signed. And then I'm just working on my thesis at that point. So of course I got to figure out what my job is going to be when I graduate. So trying to figure that out.
Right.
Tracy Waples, the head of marketing, she made a verbal offer to me to come join our marketing department and be a product manager, like when I graduate.
Yeah.
So cool. That sounds great. I wanted to, since I was working on my thesis, I wanted to interview Puff and try to get him, because I'm like, oh man, since I have kind of like this access, he knew my name at that point. We had a rapport, speaking of all of that stuff. So I asked Tracy if she would ask him if I could interview him for my thesis. And I was doing this thesis on the phenomenon of the sophomore slump. And that's when somebody comes out hot and then the next album is a break. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to him about that. Truth be told, he knows about that between.
Yes.
Yeah, I ain't got to tell you, you know. So he agreed to do it. At the time, he was doing a Raisin in the Sun on Broadway. So I got to meet him backstage while he's getting ready. So now I'm like, dang, this is kind of crazy right here. And I'm not even a starstruck person. And I wasn't starstruck, but I was like awestruck for the moment, because I'm thinking about like, wow, this takes me back like all the way. And like you fast forward just a few years, and now I'm in Puff's dressing room backstage at Broadway. So A Raisin in the Sun was in previews then. Okay. So to remind y'all, or to inform y'all if you didn't know, A Raisin in the Sun was brought back. It was Felicia Rashad, Audra McDonald, Sanaa Lathan, and Puff. Yep. Like, the cast was insane. And they made a TV movie off of it. Kenny Leon directed the TV movie and the play. So I'm backstage and I'm interviewing him. We had this good rapport. It's going great. He's being very candid. And I can tell like he's taken to me. So at the end of the interview, and while all this is going on, they're putting makeup on him and he's like getting dressed to go on stage. Yeah, that's I see Felicia Rashad walk by, because their dressing rooms are on the same side, and it's like crazy. And he asked me, he was like, so this is the thing. So I was graduating in about 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and it had been announced that I was valedictorian. So I was going to be giving this big speech, Madison Square Garden. I know this kid from Daytona Beach, FAMU.
At 3 to go to New York, and
now I'm graduating from NYU as valedictorian. Like, it's nuts, right? So that news had like spread around the office, and this kid who got Employee of the Month as an intern. Right. I'm telling you, always full-time. It was only for full-time employees, and they made the decision, this dude goes so hard, let's make him Employee of the Month. And this is the thing too, this is the funny thing on how God is. They didn't do Employee of the Month anymore after that. So they left my picture up for like 2 years on the wall with the whole Employee of the Month blurb right up. Like, so they were like, this dude is Employee of the Decade. Like, so it was like a joke that went around the office.
That is so dope. Oh my God.
So I'm backstage. Puff is like getting dressed, so he's kind of looking in the mirror. So he's talking to me, looking in the mirror, which is kind of awkward, because it's like, you over here, he's over there. So he's talking to me through the mirror, and he says, so what are you doing after you graduate? And remember, Tracy already gave me the verbal offer about being a product manager. So I said, hopefully working for you. And I didn't mean working for him. I meant,
Bad Boy.
Bad Boy. It's all you. This is your company. Company.
Right.
So he says, okay, something close to me is opening up. I want you to go for it. I'm like, okay, I ain't know what the hell this man was talking about, but
Oh,
cool. Yeah, it's like a Friday night, so I'm really excited about it, and I'm
right.
fired up about it, and I'm like, okay, this was a moment. And
Yeah.
I recorded. I had my digital recorder. It's pre-voice memos, pre-smartphones, and so I'm just like, wow, okay, this is crazy. So as of Friday, I was working 2 days a week at Columbia, 2 days a week at Bad Boy.
Okay.
When I go back into Bad Boy, I don't remember if it was that Monday or that Tuesday, but when I went back to Bad Boy, it was crazy because I came up the stairs. So this is the thing to remember too. If anybody was in New York in the early 2000s, when you went down into the subway, you went into a communication black hole. And nobody heard from you until for another 45 minutes
Got
to
the.
an hour. Yeah, because there was zero cell phone service the
Mhm.
second you went down those steps. So I was in a communication black hole. So apparently they had been trying to reach me, they being Bad Boy.
Okay.
So I get upstairs and I walk into the office, and I'm telling you, like 5 different people come up to me and are like, yo, we've been trying to reach you. Vashta, the head of HR at the time, she's been calling you. You need to go to her office like immediately. And I'm like, okay. So the fact that so many people ran up to me to tell me that, and she was a nice woman, so salt of the earth. Like, I'm starting to wonder in my head, like, wait, did I do something wrong? Like, am I about to get fired or something?
Right.
Because you hear the stories about people getting fired on a whim, seemingly. They're
Right.
true. They're all true. Stories, these stories are true. I've seen some stuff. So I'm starting to wonder. I'm like, well, maybe Puff didn't like what I said. Like maybe he felt I was being a little too like forward with when he asked what I was going to do, and I say hopefully working for you. And maybe
Right.
he thought about it later and was like, you know what, get this dude out of here, man.
Yep.
Like, I've made up in my mind at that point that I think I'm about to get fired. So,
This is
so
all
then,
all
say,
you've made up. This is nothing has informed this. You are not.
no. The only thing that's informed me, what informed me is the amount of people that ran up to me saying the head of HR is looking for you, which is like 5 different people from the walk off the elevator to
Yeah.
coming in the lobby is like a lot of people, right?
Right.
So I start rationalizing in my head, like, okay, well, it's been a good run. I graduated in a couple of weeks. Never been fired before, but okay. So I get to her office, and first thing she says to me is, close the door.
Oh.
So I'm like,
Like I was right.
I'm about to get fired. So I close the door slowly, very, very slowly. So I close the door, sit down, and she says, Puff has been looking for a protege, somebody he can like teach, like like pass on his knowledge about the business to, and eventually pass on the company to them. And I'm sitting there like it's not registering though, to be honest with you. I'm just kind of like, okay. And
And
she
she
said
goes,
he thinks that person is you. Do you want to come work for him
well,
at protege and be his personal assistant, and he's going to teach you the business firsthand, and then you will eventually come up and take over. And that's how I happened.
that's
And then
amazing.
a few weeks later, I started as Puff's personal assistant, full-time job, straight out of NYU, like a week or so after I gave that speech at Madison Square Garden. So like that was my first full-time paid job. So my job was 7 days a week. My day started waking him up in the morning, and it ended when he got into bed at night. Mad awkward, by the way, but that's what it was. I've like met a whole bunch of people in a short amount of time.
Wow.
Like, cause he was like the celebrity's cool kid, so everybody wanted to hang with him.
Yep.
And then the Sun was breaking Broadway box office records.
Wow.
So it was just like this crazy ride. Like, so my job description was I'm an extension of him.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to meet like Johnny Cochran backstage,
Wow.
Hillary Clinton backstage. Somebody recently sent me the picture of when Hillary Clinton came.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, me with Hillary Clinton and a few people. I texted to you later. Like Chris Rock. Everybody.
Yeah.
Like my friends heard from me for like pretty much that whole summer, basically. And
Yeah.
I was, I think, 2 days total the entire time that I did that job. But it was like a crash course in not just the music business, but celebrity and
Mm-hmm.
the business of celebrity. And of course, you know, Sean John. So I got to see fashion firsthand as well. You know, the work ethic that it took for him to actually like perform every night. And Felicia Rashad and Audrey McDonald, they won Tony Awards, the first Black women to win leading and supporting acting Tony Awards. And I was there at the Tonys with them when all that happened. And I got to see it every night and hear it every night.
Amazing. But God, I mean.
But God, like, and that was like, this is the crazy thing. At this point, this is how dope God is. At this point, that's just like a fun fact in terms of like my journey, as
Right.
opposed to that's the story. Like that was the
Right.
story. That was just like a fun fact. Like some people don't know, some people know.
They're
I know
loving
the CEO was waiting for it, so I wanted to.
Yes.
But I see some crazy stuff if y'all want to know. Like that's
Yeah.
going to be memoirs at some point. But I seen some crazy stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, people just love your story in general. I mean, you're super inspirational. I'm just reading the comments. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like, definitely was God in through everything. Like, it's awesome. It's so dope.
Nah, it's all God, man. It's all God. And I'm a product of that. So we're gonna move the story along. Where are we on time? Because
Probably about 13 minutes max.
okay. So I'm gonna speed this up.
I just love the story. That's why I'm not trying to cut you off because I'm like, yes, tell more.
No, it's all good. It's all good. When we talked about this last night, I was like, there's so many angles and so many parts we can get caught up in, which is a blessing. That all of that is the reflection of a blessing. So the fact that so much of that happened where it's like we can just stop on this part for a minute, it's great. So long story short, I'm going to speed this part up so I can get to where I am now and how God is using me now. So from there, I ended up quitting because I seen some crazy stuff and some things that were just, to be frank, were just unhealthy. And I didn't want to be around certain things in that environment because I don't get caught up in celebrity like that and all of that. So I decided to leave. And that was another time where I decided to leave because God told me to leave.
Okay.
And that's the first job I ever quit without having a plan and having a. But the short version of the story, because we only have probably 12 and a half minutes left at this point, is that I ended up going back to Bad Boy. I didn't want to go back.
Okay.
But they asked me to come back, and I went back, and I did digital marketing there. And I did digital marketing there. That led to me going to Motown and Republic. Shout out to Scott, who shared an office with me. He was here. That's where I went to Motown and Republic, and I did digital marketing there. And I ended up in a meeting one day, my first few months there, and they played this song by this artist that was super soulful. And they played two songs. And one was You Know I'm No Good. And then Ghostface Killer had a verse on it. I'm like, damn, this is dope. Like they had this like 60s R&B sound to it. And then they played this other song, Rehab. And I was like, oh, it's about to be a hit. And I raised my hand and I said, I want to work that. And it was Amy Winehouse. And I got to, from the digital marketing side, like introduce her to the world. And like, and then I got to work some really cool projects over the course of me being at Motown and Republic. You know, I got to work on Badu and I did all the marketing for New America Part 2. And I got to put out Q-Tip's Amplified album and work with Busta Rhymes and Wu-Tang and just a bunch of musical heroes. Remember Lloyd Street Love? That's a dope album, by the way. I worked Lloyd Street Love and Ryan Leslie, like, who had a moment for a minute. So I got promoted really quickly there. I went there as a digital marketing manager. A year later, I got promoted to director. The very next year, I got promoted to senior marketing director.
Wow.
And then I was there and Epic stole me. So I ended up going to Epic Records. And it's a whole bunch of, just so y'all know, so it's a whole bunch of little stories in there and a lot of drama that weaves out.
Part two. It's so many good stories.
Yeah, so we got it. Yeah, so I'm gonna just give y'all a taste of that. It's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Scott knows what I'm talking about. It's a whole bunch of stuff all in there. Interns that I had that are now vice presidents. Like, that's how dope God is, man. You never know how God is gonna use you to bless other people. Yeah. So you got that right. So I'm at Epic and I ended up introducing Future to the world because I ended up getting that project before anybody really outside of Atlanta knew who he was. So I literally had to pick all his first pictures and in partnership with him, come up with the video treatment and the photo shoot for Pluto. And like, that was me and him brainstorming. Let's go do this photo shoot at Huntsville Space Center. So the Pluto photo shoot is at Huntsville Space Center. Like, so just being able, I always had a knack for communicating well with artists and being able to articulate a vision and be able to bring it to life. Because my thing is, a lot of people got ideas. Right? A lot of people got ideas everywhere. Yeah. But can you get it to life though? Mm. That's what separates the men from the boys, the girls from the women. Like, can you bring it to life, or are you all taught? Yeah. Because a lot of people like to sit on the sidelines and criticize what everybody else is doing. Right. And that's not how I roll. I'm about action. I'm about putting tangible things out in the world. So I, thankfully and humbly, all ideas given to me by God, God's inspiration. The same way all that other stuff happened, God would just give me an idea and I know it'll work. And then I'll just work to bring it to life. I'm good with people and I'm good with working with people. One of my mantras is like, I want people to walk away feeling good having worked with me. Wow. Yeah. And people feel good when they work with you, even if you need something last minute or things happen, maybe you'll do something a little extra for you than they'll do for the next person. Yeah. Like, don't sleep on that. You know what I mean? So anyway, marketed Future. That was my big thing at Epic. I was only there a year. When I started at Epic, again, we probably got to do a part two. But when I started at Epic, before I started, and I can go into some more of these stories, y'all, about just God's like provision and God's sovereignty. Like, I can go all of that. But God told me before I started at Epic, you're only going to work there a year. Let me just give you the short version now. I only worked there 13 months to the day I started. I mean, listen. So the other thing to know, this parallel path started when I was at Motown Republic, where I started getting asked to come on television and give cultural context to certain situations or certain things. So for example, VH1. I was about to say, that's one of the first, I met you at EBC. So we go to EBC, shout out to EBC, all of our churches. Emmanuel Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. I got to do an offertory video right after this. So. Okay. Almost done, but it's a dope church, Emmanuel Baptist Church in Brooklyn. But I remember I met you before one of the 2030s retreats. We had but then I was watching VH1 like that following week or the week after, and I was like, I just met him. You never told me that. Church. Oh, I never told you. Yes, I remember I was watching it and I stopped and I was like, no, but I just met him. Like, like it was crazy dope. Crazy. No, it's crazy. Like. I got asked to do that by Fam Ewan, who lived right around the corner from me. Like, we went to Fam together. Again, that's another long story. But long story short, I went on and I ended up being on a whole bunch of those shows. That's how I really got extra comfortable speaking in sound bites and speaking right into the camera and just knowing what you got to say and delivering your personality to camera and doing voiceovers and all of that stuff. So that just turned into a whole parallel path career. So that led to me, like, a CNN producer saw me on VH1 and then asked me if I would go on CNN live debating lawyers and stuff about stuff happening in the culture. So this whole parallel path started. And then VH1 liked some of the stuff I did so much, they started cutting me into commercials for these shows. Like, So it turned into a real thing, and it really advanced my career to
Mm-hmm.
an ended up at Def Jam. And this is the thing I want you guys to know too. Every job I've had in this business has come through somebody emailing me, texting me, or calling me. I didn't have to go find it. And
Amazing.
that's not odd than what is. So I ended up at Def Jam in 2014 as the head of digital commerce.
Huh?
It means I ran all the relationships with Spotify and Apple, SoundCloud, so on and so forth. And we just had a great run. Some of it is just the timing that you're at a place.
Mm-hmm.
And we had Big Sean's Dark Sky Paradise, Bieber's Purpose, Rihanna's Anti, Two
Hey,
Chainz, Kanye's Life of Pablo. Like the run
I
was
mean,
pretty YG. Like the run was crazy.
as
Like Hey Aiko, like
yes,
Logic, I got to break Logic, and I broke Alessia Cara. Those are the two big ones, like artists that I break in a different way. And when I got the call about going to Def Jam, I was presented with a challenge, and I was told up front, it's not an interview. I'm asking you, do you want to do it? Yes or no?
mm-hmm.
And I was posed with the challenge of, we need somebody like you with your marketing mind to change the way this job is done. At the time, it was just like old school salespeople who are used to like selling physical CDs. And
Oh,
this was a shift where, downloads were king in a lot of ways, but
yep,
streaming really starting to bubble up. So
yes,
through those relationships, bringing the artists through Spotify and Apple and so on and so forth, they started saying to me, because I was a different profile of the people who did that job, they would say to me, man, labels need to hire more guys like you. 2 years later, that turned into, we need somebody like you. And then 2016, I went to Spotify as the head of North America for editorial, overseeing the playlisting for US and Canada. And that's how I got there. I got to Spotify. I had this vision that God gave me about how Spotify could and should show up in the broader culture, and how do you do curation around that. And that's where the ideas around, moments like Stranger Things, and
yeah,
moments like where it's a big like music moment in film and in TV, and
uh,
like how to like strategize and organize around doing that kind of work. So that's where all of that came. So I created this position called cultural curator, and that turned into me creating this role, head of cultural partnerships. And then the hosting stuff just came into Spotify. And
no.
that's the short version of that part.
Yeah, so we definitely gonna do a part two. I think Daryl Reed said also a part three, so stay tuned. But really quick, before we cut out, where can people see you now? What are some of the projects you're working on now? Where can people kind of catch you, hear your voice, and all that?
Yeah, so you can hear The Window, which is a Spotify original podcast produced by Gimlet. That comes out every Wednesday. I highly recommend you check it out. It started out as snapshots of life during the pandemic, where The Window is all about me looking out my window and telling you what I'm seeing during this life during the pandemic, but also a window into people's lives. So it's personal diaries that people would share. So I set it up as the host, tell a bit about my story, set up their story, and it goes into their story. But we pivoted in light of George Floyd and Amy Cooper. And I pitched us pivoting and extending season one to being about the realities of being Black in America.
Yeah,
So we pivoted and hurried up and got out an episode last Friday, which was me really telling my story about my interactions with the police. And I'll just let y'all listen to it. Just go on Spotify and search The Window, or if you go on my Instagram, in my bio, you just click right to it. And that episode is called No Room for Error. So it's a couple of Spotify colleagues in that. And then today's episode is Tamika D. Mallory, social justice leader, and Trey the Truth, friend of George Floyd, Houston rapper, who also organized the Houston protest. So that's today's episode. So we pivoted the podcast. It's called The Window. Go just check it out in my bio, or go on Spotify and search The Window. They're all short episodes,
okay.
10 to 13 minutes. Last week's episode is 18 minutes because we take some time to really talk about like police interaction and police brutality.
Yeah.
But that's the main place. There's a whole bunch more stuff coming out that's recorded and coming that I can't say just yet. But we'll just focus on The Window for now.
Okay, dope. Well, make sure you guys follow Xavier at Xavier Jernigan. I we have to do a part two. I just want to thank you for sharing your journey and really how God is just speaking to you, because I think that's so inspirational. So thank you for just being like so dope and so open. And we have
Laura, y'all check out Emmanuel virtually, EBC